Hey all, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to Monday. Welcome to the first day of summer 2021. And how about we kick things off the right way? What do you say we do a countdown? In fact, what do you say we look back at some of our favorite voice actors and do the top 10 Transformers voice actors as voted on by you guys all across social media? Yeah? You on board? Great, because that's going to be our focus this time around in the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, man, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe, and while you're at it, light them up, baby. Hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton. It lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor. All the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all my social media links, all of that down in the description below. If you are in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we offer to you through Teespring, or of course hit the join button right here on YouTube to become a channel member. And this is going to be the top 10 voice actors in Transformers. All across Transformers, all iterations, the whole thing. Who are the top 10 voice actors? Now, some of these certainly are going to be somewhat anticlimactic. Some of these are going to be, I think, a little bit of a surprise. And in certain cases, there may even be characters that were voiced by certain actors that you didn't know were voiced by those actors. Some of the cases I didn't know. So there's a lot. There is definitely... In terms of the voting this time around, I'd say, I haven't really counted it up, but looking at my list, I'm going to say that there was about 550 votes this time, roughly somewhere in that vicinity. Not the biggest, but not the smallest. It was the most fun, though. So, we're going to kick things off as we always do with our honorable mentions first. And in our honorable mentions, who do we have? We have John Machida, who we all know as Blur, speaking so fast. And if I say any of these names wrong, man, I apologize. I'm going on the way I've always understood their names to be pronounced. But what I did not know is that he also played Blowpipe and Punch Counterpunch. Go figure. Who else? Micheal Bell. Micheal Bell I thought was going to be higher than an honorable mention. For those of you who don't know, he's Bombshell, Gort. He was Swoop, he was Dr. Fujiyama, the famous scientist, Sideswipe, Prowl. He was a ton of voices. A ton of voices in G1. I really thought that Mr. Bell was going to be higher, but he is a favorite in our hearts. Who else? Darren Norris. He is probably best known as Knockout from Transformers Prime. He does have several other credits before Knockout to his name as well. Orson Welles, he was an honorable mention, of course, as Unicron. It was his last role. And, who else? Casey Kasem came in as an honorable mention. Of course, we all remember him most prolifically as Cliffjumper, but that certainly wasn't the only voice he did. You know what? I think we'll all remember him as Cliffjumper. It's as simple as that. So all of those honorable mentions, none of those made the list. Who did? Well, we're going to kick things off, as we always do, with number 10. But number 10 this time around is a tie. And coming in at number 10 first is G1 Jazz's voice actor, Scatman Crothers. He was a very memorable voice. Every Jazz that has come since then has been measured by him. Apparently, he used to actually bring his guitar and stuff to voiceover sessions because the booth was small, entertain the other voice actors. Apparently he was a really good dude. The late, great Scatman Crothers at number 10 for Jazz. But tied with him is he who voiced Alpha Trion, Spike, Brawn, and probably best known for animated Megatron and this guy, Shockwave. I'm talking about Corey Burton, tied for number 10. Both of these gentlemen, very prolific, iconic voices. I mean, Jazz's G1 voice, everybody tries to do that same thing and comes close, but no one is quite as identifiable as Scatman. As far as Corey Burton goes, come on. Come on. Every time you hear his Shockwave voice, you tend to say that is the quintessential Shockwave. Some people have imitated it quite well, but he's the originator and he's the measuring stick. And for that reason, both of these gentlemen have to take the number 10 slot. Coming in at number 9 is the actor who played Skyfire, Long Haul, and even Outback. But the role he's best known for, a role that he has played in G1 and in video games, the role that he is iconic for representing is none other than Grimlock. I'm talking, of course, about Mr. Greg Berger himself. All of those voices, I did not know that his voice was Skyfire or Outback for that matter. It's kind of amazing to me, really, when I stop and think about it, because I don't hear hints of Grimlock there, yet Grimlock's voice in and of itself is very unique and iconic. He also was Volcanicus in the Power of the Primes, if I'm not mistaken. So he's always been associated with Grimlock and the Dinobots, you know, kind of as the quintessential rough and tough voice. There have been other great Grimlocks, but when we talk about the G1 version that we know and love, the guy who means well, is strong, but a little bit of a dimwit, you got to remember that voice, that gruff, that Grimlock voice that was made absolutely iconic for the character by Greg Berger, that he can still do perfectly to this day, all these years later. He is one of the, not only best known, but one of the most fan favorite voice actors for all of G1 that all of us grew up with. And for that reason, he takes the number 9 slot. Number 8 is not as prolific within Transformers as a lot of our other voice actors, but he is prolific and well known outside of Transformers. Within the franchise that we know and love, he appeared, technically, in both the Bayverse movies as well as G1. Who am I talking about? He who voiced both Sentinel Prime and Galvatron, none other than the late, great Leonard Nimoy himself. The voice that everybody knows as Mr. Spock, but when you hear him as Galvatron, the power and the gravitas that he brought to that in the film can't be overshadowed at all. It was a far deeper, more menacing version of Galvatron than we got later on from Frank Welker. Him as much later in his career, much later in his life as Sentinel Prime, it matched because he actually sounded like a mentor and older than Optimus. And honestly, at the time, like, you know, both Mr. Cullen and Mr. Nimoy were, you know, they were both up there in age at the time, but the way that Leonard Nimoy was able to embody Sentinel Prime for that film, for Dark of the Moon, was spot on. Plus, it was a nice little nod back to Galvatron. Enough people remember him either as Galvatron or Sentinel Prime that the prolific Leonard Nimoy was able to take the number 8 slot. Our next entrant has been both a voice actor and a voice director for Transformers. I'm talking about the great Susan Blue, Sue Blue. Best known, of course, for being both G1 RC and animated RC. But behind the scenes is really kind of where she has shone. Like, she kind of learned at the footstool, so to speak, of Wally Burr. And she took that forward, I want to say to Transformers Prime specifically, maybe others, where at times she was a voice director and really helped other actors not only find the voice, but be able to find a way to bring a character that is animated to life, a character that they aren't acting as themselves, but rather seeing on screen like everybody else. It's not an easy thing to do true justice to voice acting, and you need the right director, you need somebody who knows what they're doing, knows how it works to help bring that out in others. Because of her notoriety as RC a couple of times, a voice that we all know and love, and because she has helped mold some of the other voices that we have come to know and love in this franchise, she had to appear on this list, and she easily took the number 7 slot. And while number 6, at one time or another, did play Optimus Prime, for me and forever, he'll be best known as Optimus Primal. Of course, I'm talking about Gary Chalk. Even every year now, when he does like the Christmas song, that he'll do really in the voice of Optimus Primal, which really is pretty much his own voice. But it's always something that makes me smile every year. You know, it's that it harkens back to Beast Wars, and I was a Beast Wars fan. Here's the funny thing. years and years and years ago when I first heard his voice, and I kind of saw it as like, this is the guy who's replacing Optimus. He doesn't quite have the same, I don't know, stature in his voice as Optimus Prime did, and it took me a little while to get used to it. The funny thing is, now you fast forward all these years later, I cannot imagine anybody, and we've heard a couple of other people try to do Optimus Primal, but nobody is as identified with this character as Gary Chalk is now and ever will be. And for those who are fans of some like Unicron trilogy Optimus Primes, he's probably the voice of your Optimus Prime as well. Classic actor who loves the fans, loves the franchise, still gives us a nod every year. We are blessed to be able to say that Gary Chalk has lent his voice to characters that we know and love. For me, it'll be Optimus Primal now and forever. And for that reason, he took the number 6 slot. Ah, yes, here we are once again. You know where we are. It is the most coveted of spots. That's right, it is the halfway mark. And at the halfway mark today comes one of my favorites, honestly. Probably Starscream wife's favorite. That being Mr. Steven Blum. Steve Blum, he of course best known as Steve Blum, best known as Transformers Prime Starscream. He has definitely done other voices within Transformers, especially within some of the video games. But undoubtedly, his voice is best known for this Starscream, and many a fan who have tried to imitate Starscream, rather than try and do any other version, have really tried to imitate his voice for Starscream, because this is their Starscream. Honestly, I see the argument for it. Arguably the second best Starscream we've ever had. Certainly good enough that he was able to take the number 5 slot. Now, I said that the second most iconic voice for Starscream arguably belongs to Steve Blum. Well, the first one belongs to the same gentleman who also voiced Sparkplug, Swoop, Reflector, Old Snake, Cobra Commander. Who am I talking about? None other than G1 Starscream's voice actor, the late, great Chris Latta. Chris Latta was... honestly, he was a fairly prolific actor. Like, he appeared in a lot of programs, more than you would know. He was so many voices. He was really one of the voices of a generation of children who have grown up now and look back with nostalgia and remember that raspy, iconic voice that was always, always recognizable. No one has ever been able to pull off Starscream quite like him. Many have come close, many have tried, myself included. No one was able to do it the same justice he could. Live forever as, I would say, the one voice that everybody tries to emulate. G1 Starscream, Chris Latta, the late, great voice actor and actor. Honestly, missed by many even today. Comes in at the number 4 slot. Now, our next entrant has actually had more of a history in this franchise that we know and love than I ever thought. He has acted as Transformers Prime Hardshell, as well as animated Lugnut, and even animated Optimus Prime. But I think he's most known for being Beast Wars Megatron. Yes, of course I'm talking about the fantastic Mr. David Kaye. I think everybody associates him first and foremost with Beast Wars Megatron, but he has voiced a lot of iconic characters in this franchise across different iterations. I had no clue that he was Hardshell. I did know he was Optimus. I did not know he was Lugnut, and he was also Grimlock in animated. I didn't know he was Grimlock. I mean, if you wanted to say who was the actor who voiced the most characters, who was the most prolific actor for animated, I think it would probably go to David Kaye, who already had a long history. His love for the franchise and his love for the fans is absolutely boundless. And for that reason, and for all of the great, great characters that he has given life to for us, Mr. David Kaye comes in at the number 3 slot. And here at the top, too, it was a neck-and-neck heat race right up until the bitter end for number 2 and number 1. Number 2 is as many probably already suspect, Mr. Frank Welker. Voiced Soundwave, voiced Megatron, voiced Galvatron, voiced most of the cassettes, voiced our childhood. It's across so many series, across so many characters. The man could do, still can do it all. He is definitely the voice of a generation, more than I think most fans even realize or will ever realize the contributions that he's made to pop culture. Undoubtedly he deserved to be on this list. Undoubtedly he deserved to be very, very high. And he could have easily taken number one. Like I said, it was a dead heat race. And Mr. Welker came in at the number 2 slot. So you know what that means, right? It means that number 1 is going to be none other than Mr. Peter Cullen, who again has such a grandiose gravitas, deep demeanor to his voice. He was, for a generation, like everybody's dad. You know, Optimus Prime was like everyone's dad. And I don't think he or the creators of Transformers or Hasbro or anyone truly realized just how important of a character Optimus Prime was until many years later. And I think that, you know, while many have played Optimus, I think the most iconic voice, the one that people try to emulate, the one that we look at as that father figure voice, is the voice of Peter Cullen. And we are so lucky that we had him not only for all of G1, but that we've had him for Transformers Prime, that we've had him for RID 2015, that we've had him for the films. Now and forever, that voice, the way he delivers lines and stuff, will be remembered, will be revered as the quintessential Optimus Prime. I'll say this, it was a neck and neck race between Peter Cullen and Frank Welker. Early on, they were both behind David Kaye, but then the votes started rolling in. Peter Cullen won number 1 by 1 vote. 1 vote separated them. It was as close as that. But you know what? Whether it was Frank Welker or whether it was indeed Peter Cullen, he most certainly deserved the number 1 slot. And there you go, we've gone from 10 down to 1 again. Probably not surprising near the top. Maybe a couple of surprises peppered in throughout. There were a lot of great votes that were cast. Gina Torres, who played Arachnid. Eric Idle, who played Wreck-Gar, as we know in the movie. Robert Stack, who played Ultra Magnus. Jack Angel, who played Ultra Magnus. Ramjet, Astro Train, Omega Supreme, and many others. I thought that Jack Angel was definitely going to be well up there. Who else had votes? Dan Gelvezian, who of course was Bumblebee. Who else do I have here that we can kind of throw in there? Jeffrey Combs, or Jeffrey Coombs. I never know which way he pronounces his last name. I loved him as Wayoon on Deep Space Nine, but I mean Ratchet, Transformers Prime Ratchet, all day, every day. I love his voice. I find it very soothing. Who else do we have here? Darren Criss, who played RID Sideswipe. Ken Watanabe, who played Drift in the films. Tara Strong, who played Sari Sundak, as well as some others, honestly. Skybite, Peter Spelos, or Spelos. Who else do we have here that we could throw out? Paul Eiding, who played Perceptor. Kirby Morrow, the late great Kirby Morrow, who played Rad, and I think in Cybertron played Hotshot. And do I have anybody else here I can just throw in there? Neil Ross, who played Slag and Springer and Monzo. So many wonderful actors. We as fans should be very, very thankful that they have given their time and their effort to us. A lot of times they thank the fans, but it's us who have been entertained for hours upon hours by them. So thank you to everyone named and unnamed. We appreciate you all. Let me know who your favorite voice actors are. I appreciate you guys coming by, giving me some of your very valuable time. I do know, man, how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon, see what we offer to you through Teespring, or of course, hit the join button right here on YouTube to become a channel member. While you're at it, why not hit the subscribe button? Stick around, man. Have some fun with us here on the channel. Don't forget that somehow, some way, each and every single day, you do make a difference. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights at the stop motion premieres or the old fashioned way, baby, right here inside the videos.